Hi everybody! I wanted to do a little video on the Mars retrograde that we are having. It has already started, and I wanted to talk a little bit about where this is happening and the themes. Not only are this is not unusual to be in a period of time where lots of planets are retrograding. Typically, the late spring to summer is a time where planets are retrograding. It's just kind of how it goes. And Mars retrograde, though, during this time, and all the eclipses that are happening is just intensity. It's more fired up, so to speak, because Mars is very fiery, especially with the eclipses, the last one being in Leo, the second one being in Aquarius Leo. So we really want to be aware of our anger, be aware of our impulses, and starting to check ourselves. We want to look to where this is happening in your chart, and I have a chart example to talk about today, so I wanted to share a little bit about that. And I also wanted to just show you guys how to find this in your chart. And then also talk about why retrogrades are a big deal. I was making a joke that a lot of people ask me about the retrogrades, or they'll tag me on a post about retrogrades and they're like, what's retrograding? And I'm like, it's not that unusual that planets are retrograde. You will typically see in charts people being born with planets retrograde. It's not a big deal. The thing about it is that it means that the influence is coming across more strongly. Their orbit is closer to the Earth, so the influences are a little bit stronger and can feel a little bit just confusing, because instead of it being an outward expression or moving forward, it tends to be a time where we look within and start to notice our own patterns and our own things that are holding us back. And this is really true with Mars retrograde. Mars is a masculine planet. It's the impulses, it's the drive, it's the moving your feet forward to get you somewhere. So therefore, when it's retrograde, we can have a lot of that impulsiveness, or that wanting to move forward, and frustration with ourselves for maybe not taking those actions to move things forward, or looking at where we've been blocked before and figuring out ways to work with this energy. Okay, so you want to look to 9 degrees of Aquarius is where it's starting, and then it goes back through into Capricorn, actually. So you want to look and see if in the first 9 degrees of, especially at the beginning, it's going to be 9 degrees and working its way back. So you want to look to where this is in your chart, and this would be the the first 9 degrees of Aquarius. Okay, so look where that is in your chart. Aquarius, how Aquarius looks on your chart is 2 squiggly lines in a row. And I am working on today, if I can get to it, it might not be today, but maybe tomorrow, to actually having the ability to pull up charts on my website. There's just so many things to work on, and I hope to get to it today. Excuse me. And if I don't, I'll get to it tomorrow, so you'll be able to look up your chart on my website. It's super easy if you know your time of birth. So that's the big one that a lot of people struggle with. So you want to know what time you were born. So Aquarius, where is that in your chart? Do you have a lot of planets there? Are you in Aquarius? Do you have an Aquarius moon? Do you have an Aquarius rising? You're going to feel this Mars retrograde even more. Not only that, but then we have this eclipse July 27th in Aquarius. Double whammy. And so you really want to be aware of your pent-up anger, pent-up aggression, also where you feel frustrated with yourself, and really not getting stuck in this tailspin that can happen. So it's really important to know what is happening there. So we want to let's look at a sample chart. Paco, it's okay. So let's look at a chart that I had it pulled up, but not yet. Hope you guys are having a great Monday. It's Monday here today. And okay, so the sample chart is this the right chart. And of course, my phone is having things happen. Okay, so the sample chart we have, this person has Aquarius, like waiting for the chart to pull up, Aquarius in So this is happening in her first house, which is the house of identity. It's also Mars rules the first house. So bam, it's like a big time push to notice patterns within the self around identity, around the way you look, the way you identify, the way people see you, the way you see yourself. And so when Mars is retrograding here, and it's conjunct the South Node, which is the past, and I'm going to talk about more about that in a minute, but with that all being in the first house, it's really important to not go to the old, to not go back into childhood too much, not to move backwards. And this is really about forward movement. So it being in your first house going into in Aquarius. Aquarius it can be the mind. It's very intellectual. It's very inventive at coming up with new ideas. We talk about, Mars in Aquarius is very open and expanding to downloads and information coming in, getting all sorts of new ideas about the self, but also about community, about how community can work. So some really big things might be coming through at this time. And with this retrograde in particular with Mars, it's actually going, not only is it going retrograde, but it's going out of bounds, which is basically when it goes, I think it's like 23 declination out, further out of the orbit. And so what that means is that it can feel a little bit wacky. It can feel like the not knowing which way to go and not knowing what to move forward. So a little bit of like ADD energy coming through, and especially if this is in someone's first house, they're going to be feeling that more in terms of their identity, like who am I, which way should I go, which way should I take this, or something needs to shift and I don't know what. And then you always want to look to the opposite house too. So you want to look and see if anything is in 9 degrees, the first 10 degrees basically of Aquarius, okay? But then also the opposite of that, which is Leo. Leo and Aquarius are opposites, and so you want to look to the first 9 degrees of Leo and see if anything is there. And for this example chart, she has her moon there. Wait, does she? Yeah, she does. So she has her moon there, and this can really affect, again, coming back to that that inner child and that the emotional, because our moon is our emotions, and some of our emotions get locked up in childhood because if we don't have the words for things or we don't have the full brain capacity to process things can get stuck. So there's an opportunity here for transformation and healing for this person, and maybe for you too, with the moon in the 8th house opposite this Mars retrograde, and then also it will be involved in the eclipse of July 27th and August 11th. Okay, so Mars retrograde, you want to know what house is happening for you, so you want to look for the first 10 degrees of Aquarius. Then I'm not going to lie, there's so many other things happening out there that it's kind of hard to just focus on that one thing, because not only is that happening, but that Mars is squaring Uranus in Taurus, squaring, which is, all the fixed signs. So it's lots of fixed energy. So the biggest thing is that Mars and Uranus squaring each other. Uranus rules Aquarius. And so since Mars is retrograding in Aquarius, squaring Uranus, which is the ruler of Aquarius, in Taurus, there's just this pent up energy that has to find a way out. It has to find a way to be processed and moved forward. And so, hi Megan, how's it going? I'm almost coming over real soon. So this theme of the square is huge. It's up the whole summer. This also, I can't leave out the fact that it is very much the collective. It's not just what's happening on the personal level. So yes, you want to know where the first few degrees of Uranus, which would be Taurus, the first few degrees of Taurus are in your chart, but you also want to know where Aquarius, the first 9 degrees of Aquarius is in your chart. So this is the reason to just get to know your chart. It's really not that difficult once you understand what the symbols look like for each of the zodiac signs. And that is given to you with the chart when you look it up. And like I said, I will have this up on my website, hopefully today, possibly tomorrow, for you to look up your chart. So that's really important. That square that's happening, you want to know where it's happening personally for you. So for this example chart, this person has that happening, the square of Mars in Mars in Aquarius squaring her 4th house of Uranus and Taurus. So identity and family, again, another theme of how you were raised, what gifts you were given, or what kind of negative things you were given around messages about how you can feel at home here, or how you can feel at home with yourself and your own identity. And so very likely this person is working out some things and some themes around their identity and how they can feel more at home in their personal home, but also just on planet Earth. Okay, so very much the 1st and the 4th house are the houses that we build from, and so it's foundational houses. So it's really important to recognize that and to give yourself lots of credit when you're doing this work on these areas of your life, because they are foundational. So it's big work. It's a big time for work. So really being aware of that. And again, I'm just talking about this example chart because I like to give that for people to understand a little bit better. But the Mars retrograde, you want to know what house that's happening for you, the first 9 degrees, and then how it's squaring Uranus and Taurus. Then we also have other things that are getting lit up too. So we have Leo, we have a bunch of Leo energy, and that is Mercury in Leo, and then Jupiter in Scorpio. So we really want to know where these fixed signs are in your chart, and you're typically going to notice certain themes coming up around that. Not only that, but we also have, thankfully, to support this and to create movement and flow and emotions coming up so that we can feel it, we can let ourselves have that release and move forward. We have a grand water trine in the first 10 days of July here. So we have that with Jupiter, again, is getting lit up with that. Jupiter in Scorpio, Neptune in Pisces, and the Sun in Cancer. So you want to know where that's happening in your chart. And I was just looking for myself. I'm like thinking about this last weekend, and I got out in nature and I had some realizations, and then I was like, I'm going to look at my chart. And I typically do that, look at my own chart, and I was like, oh wow, the theme is exactly the same. Like it basically says exactly what I was working on this weekend. It's there in the chart, of course. And so it's really fun to look at the chart and really use it as not only like a guidance, but also an affirmation or a validation into the work that you're doing. Like, it is important to take time to reflect. It is important to take time to rejuvenate. It is important to feel the feelings and feel the emotions and take that space. And if you don't, this is where we have problems. Learning how to release anger in a safe and healthy way is a huge theme. Finding breathing space, finding opportunities to release, finding opportunities to in healthy ways to use your assertiveness so that it doesn't come out in wonky ways, so that you're not totally being boundaryless and then totally blowing up, right? Which is very typical in our culture of a passive aggressive type behavior. Okay, so not everybody's like that, I'm not saying that, but it's important to recognize if you are more like that, then it's an opportunity to practice setting those boundaries and setting those things up. Okay, so healthy releases of anger. I definitely was working on this weekend. It's so great to get out in nature, hitting sticks and breaking them, and that kind of stuff can be so healthy for releasing anger, as well as physical activity and just walking and moving your body, and just being aware if you're noticing that you want to react, really taking a moment to find your center. And hi Shannon, how are you? So really finding a moment to find your inner center and ground yourself before you explode out at someone, because likely you're going to regret it later. There is just a lot of changes to community and changes to your community. So you want to be careful of not saying things that could end up, ruining friendships, could end up ruining your community connections. Oh, good. I'm so glad. And you want to make sure that, if you are having issues with someone, that you really, find your center first, work things out, write things out for yourself, how you're feeling, and really be aware of what's truly coming up for you, what the trigger is, what it's lighting up for you about your history, about your past, because the South Node is conjunct this Mars retrograde. And when the South Node is involved, South Node is our history, is our past. It can even be past lives. Like, you can have a big reaction to something and it might not even be from this time, So that's just my personal belief and the work that I do. But but to be aware and to be conscientious of not reacting to anger. And Aquarius is technology as well, and the internet. So not reacting to certain posts, really breathing and taking a space, connecting with people in person, maybe not texting as much, just being aware, being really aware in this summer about, you know, what's coming up for you around community, what's coming up for you around how you fit into community. So those are all really important. So this is a time for you to just see things, let things come up, get the information, and recognize how it can take a time, but to recognize how you can like put the puzzle pieces together to change your life and to move yourself forward. And that it's not really about moving fast, it's really about letting yourself have the integration time. And with the clients last week, what I kept finding myself saying is, you know, for those of us that feel like, gosh, why is the world so difficult? Why are people not waking up? Why does it feel like other people don't get this stuff or get spirituality or, you know, caring for the earth or whatever it is? What I tell people is like, the more that we, as feeling like we're somewhat awakened to some extent, as much as we can slow down, stay grounded, really tap into our center, meditate, get out in nature, the more that we can do those things and really not push so hard, really not, you know, taking the little steps that we can to like help the system, but for the most part taking care of the self and taking care of your family and taking care of the people closest to you and yourself, the more that you can do that actually provides the grounding for the people around us that we feel like aren't as awake, aren't as understanding of the bigger picture, for them to actually step into it. So it's not about pushing other people as much as it is about creating that really firm grounding for ourselves so that other people can see that part of us reflected and start to move into their own power, move into their own place, because they're like, wow, you know, you're really influencing me. Instead of, you know, I was just reading a post about someone just totally losing it, which is totally normal. It's okay to lose it. I'm not saying it's not. But that's not where people are going to learn. That's not where people are going to be influenced from. People are going to be influenced from a really grounded, really rooted and conscientious place and conscientious presence. So it's really important to be aware of that as we're moving forward into this really unknown, really been going. That's interesting how it tells you how long you've been talking for. 17 minutes? That's a long time. Okay, so being aware of those things this summer, being aware that, you know, collectively things are shifting. We know that this Uranus square with Mars, this isn't the only time it's going to have a square, and this is really huge collectively, and it plays into, in these eclipses also that we have this summer, of course, everything plays into each other. So we're getting glimpses of where we're going in 2020. Guess what else? We're midway through Trump's candidacy. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about who's running. Nobody's talking about, you know, any kind of leadership that is taking us in a different direction. And that's where we really need to be focused on, is not on how bad things are. It's on where we want to go, the vision. So it's really important to stay in that place. And as we're moving forward, to really recognize that what we want and where we want to be and what's most important to us, what are our values, because in 2020 things are going to shift dramatically, and we're going to get a glimpse of that in the first eclipse, which is July 12th. Is that next week? Oh my goodness, that's next week. July 12th is already, so that's the other thing with the eclipse period time frame, is that time, at least for me, moves differently. So we are already almost there, and we have the last quarter moon July 5th, the day after Independence Day, and that is that's going to show us what else needs to be released in order to really set new intention for the partial solar eclipse that is on July 12th in 20 degrees of Cancer, which I'll talk about more. I'll probably make another video if I have time. So you want to know where Cancer is in your chart as well. Okay, so with that partial solar eclipse, it's going to be really, really vital to have a really strong vision and to be really centered. So really tapping into your intuition, tapping into nature, tapping into getting around water, and as we get to this eclipse, it's going to be, this is the beginning of we're kind of slowly starting to fade out of the Leo Aquarius eclipses, which eclipses the pattern, it's oppositions, it's the north and the south node. The north node is in Leo, the south node is in Aquarius, and then we're moving into north node because they go backwards. It's really confusing and fun. They move backwards and they'll move north node into Cancer, south node into Capricorn. And guess what that means? That means the collapse of the old system. Whoop, whoop. So that's something to look forward to. And the more that we can stay grounded and really trusting and really present in our lives, the better it's going to go. So I hope you guys have a beautiful day. It's a great time to get your chart read. I know a lot of you have 4th of July off, and I have 2 openings for astrological readings or intuitive healing sessions in the morning of July 4th. If you're interested in booking with me, definitely click the link in my profile, or no, I'll have it below here. Yeah, and I'm also, for a lot of my clients have been talking and asking me about relationship. I used to do relationship work. I have the whole program of the Staying Connected, and I just basically threw that all together into an online course, and that's available also through the link that I'll post below if you're interested in that, because this is a huge time for relationship shifts and just really staying present with what's needing to be recognize within yourself and not doing too much projection of what needs to change with the other person as much as you can. I hope you guys have a beautiful day. I will be sharing more next week as we get closer to that solar eclipse, and have a great day.